That's enough of
let's
my
get on to my
complaining.
topic. We'll kind of just breeze through this because I had a question for all you guys. I was thinking about today at work, like more monthly modules that we could possibly do down the road. And there's a game called Exalted, which I have this real love-hate relationship with. So we're talking tabletop RPG games, obviously. If you don't know what our monthly modules is, where we all get together and every month play a different game, usually a module of a game.
We just wrapped up L5R this month, correct?
Yep.
We posted the last video.
Yep, so you can watch that whole thing now, youtube.com/podcast5rings. There's our plug. I was thinking about Exalted. It's a game I really have a love-hate relationship with just because the lore is so deep and so cool and so awesome. There's all these like factions that are against each other and the setting's just super rich, but mechanically the game is like busted and doesn't really work.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, so on a scale that's almost unrivaled. The only game I can think of that compares to what I just said about Exalted, the things I like and hate about it is Rifts. Is a more like busted garbage role-playing system. So I was kind of curious if you guys had like a love-hate relationship with any kind of tabletop RPG. Let's start with you, Tets, because I think you said yours was controversial.
Oh, I was just saying I can go last because part of my problem is I have a RPG collection, a ever-growing. Actually, I think since we started monthly modules, I've gained 5 new books for my RPG collection.
Nice.
I will probably never play the majority of them. I just really like them. I love reading the books. I love reading through the systems. I have a love-hate relationship with the exception of D&D and Pathfinder. I don't really like them, but I want to like them. Especially 3.5, which makes sense with Pathfinder.
It's totally understandable.
Well, so, like, all of my reasons for not liking them, like, there's other systems that are worse about that I am fine with. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the crunch. I'm not a huge fan of getting overly tactical. I prefer sci-fi over fantasy, but none of those one things are necessarily make it or break it for me. And I still enjoy D&D and Pathfinder, don't get me wrong. That's why I say it's a love-hate relationship. It's just, I kind of internally groan a little bit when, like, that's all that the RPG community talks about. It's like, but there's so many other things. And I don't know how much it's the hipster effect. To be perfectly honest, it may be a little bit of a hipster effect that everybody plays D&D and Pathfinder.
The hipster effect.
I have the opposite problem because I can't get anyone around here to play either of those games.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, like, because my friend who's a GM doesn't like running D&D because people usually don't invest into, like, a rich backstory of their character or something. My local tabletop group, we're all pretty good about that. And he ran, like, a huge D&D game that was, like, a year and a half long, which is huge for us. I know that's not, like, big in the big picture, but most of our games last, like, 6 or 7 months. So to have, like, a year and a half long D&D game where we actually all had these, like, really cool, deep characters, even, like, the person that we have in our group who usually doesn't make super deep connected to the plot characters actually made one, which surprised him. So maybe he'll do more of it in the future. But he was always like, I don't like running D&D because it just turns into, let's go to the dungeon, kill the stuff, and get our gear. And I think there's some really good stories you can tell of the system. So
yeah,
it just depends on your group.
I think that's part of it. Is like I'm not that I've had problems with this in the past because I haven't, but I'm always worried that D&D is going to come down to min-maxing. And again, it's an unfair thing that I've attached to D&D in my mind, and I don't really know where it came from. But I always, whenever I think about min-maxing in RPGs, it's always D&D and Pathfinder. Like, to me, those two are really min-max abusive, which, again, doesn't make sense because there's a lot of other games that you can be much worse about it on.
Well, that kind of ties into my issue, or my choice, which is also D&D. But they have so many options that you can literally build the scope. 3.5 as a tier system, and you can build there are just trap choices. They're awful choices. You should not choose them because they do like practically nothing.
Sam.
Yeah, 3.5 is basically my love-hate. I love all the character options, and I hate a lot of the character options.
The splat for that version is so wide and large. Oh my god.
Mainly, I love building character, like I love all the classes and prestige classes, but when it comes down to like feats, there's a lot of crap.
Oh yeah.
Which is why I think some people rely too much on min-maxing just because if you're not at least wary about it, you could just think you could take something that sounds cool and is actually just the worst.
Yep.
I think another problem with what you're talking about, Mal, is that I also know for a fact that 3.5 had a lot of balance issues, not only from the player's side, from all the options that there were, and because of the open license and whatnot, but from also the creature side. There's some notorious creatures that are known to be way higher level than they should have been.
The original 3.0 balance was so bad that they had to come out with 3.5.
Yeah. So
and then they got Pathfinder as 3.75, which I think does an even better job with the rules side.
That's why you play 5th edition, man.
I love 5th edition, but it's probably my favorite now. Just I wish there were more character options. That's why my love-hate option is with 3.5. And I've not played a ton of other RPGs. So
what about you, Meta?
I'm the odd man out, and my choice is actually L5R. That's the one I've got the most love-hate relationship with. I love me some Magical Samurai, but gosh dang it, do I not like a lot of the information written for 4th edition. I'm not even going to talk about 3rd, 2nd, or 1st because I don't know anything about those. But 4th edition...
Let me tell you.
No, please don't. 4th edition, like some of the biggest problems is that I started off with Dungeons & Dragons 3.5, and...
by the stuff written, do you mean rule side or flavor side?
A little bit of both. It's actually just a lot of both, truth be told. I actually like really tactical stuff. I love getting into the nitty gritty. I love coming with a brilliant strategy.
Me too.
I love working with my allies and be like, all right, if you do this, I'll cover you here. If you can go around here, I will make you the king of this moment. And I love doing that kind of stuff with my allies. That does require a lot of rules, and L5R, that's not always the case. L5R has some really weird rulings, not only where those rules are, but sometimes the rules are missing, like the infamous Moto Bushi, which is you can wield two-handed weapons in one hand, but it's almost no weapon has two-handed except for specifically heavy weapons and bows, and you won't find out that bows are technically mandatory two-hand unless you read something else that links back to bows. It's not even stated by bows itself that they need to be wielded two hands, even though we all know, well, duh, but the rules don't say that, which is really weird. And that's just an example of it. I see a lot of rules and stuff that aren't always touched on. So then your GM is always like, well, shit, there's nothing there for it, or it doesn't totally make sense. So I guess I gotta pull it from somewhere. And then somebody will be like, oh no, it turns out it was actually on page so-and-so, nowhere near where you wanted it to be when you're trying to find the rule. And I just don't like that.
I want to agree with you on that, particularly on spells in L5R.
Yeah.
It's going to come down to what the GM thinks has to go. I mean, how many raw versus RAI arguments that we gotten in just in our PvP game?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many times where raw RAI, and it's well, rules is intended, but if you're playing with all these different people, you kind of have to go by raw, but raw will mean that this is broken. It's a big
I almost
mess.
feel like L5R just needs DMs need to take a really hard line, this is what I'm saying, don't question it.
Yeah, you kind of have to.
You kind of have to, and it's unfortunate because it means that when you go into the game, I'll recommend this for any game you go into, but if you go into a game, sit down with your GM and okay, this is my game plan. Am I going to run into a wall because of our interpretations of things? I mean, that's got to kind of go for the start.
Measure upward distance with hypotenuse.
Yeah.
the infamous if I cast the fire spell on my battle maiden who's riding the horse, does it hurt my horse?
Does it hurt my horse?
Which for our game started a minor shitstorm.
It did.
The horse clearly wields the
horse does wield
battle maiden. You cast
like
it
a
on
katana of fire. Am I right? That completely.
Yep, so you cast it on the horse. That way, it makes it immune to the rider.
Exactly.
Yep. As long as the horse is wielding the maiden in its mouth.
As long as you're wielding these things, they're not on fire. But the moment you drop them, they're singeing them.
Yeah, these are the rules that you may run across in L5R that your GM has to roll on.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. And then there's just from the flavor side, just from the lore perspective of some stuff, I really hate some of the things that makes it really hard to get into the game. Not talking about money, except commerce gives you then a mastery bonus that everything costs less, 20% less for you, but you don't talk about money, so how would you actively put that into a story? Does all the people in the market just know, oh shit, that guy's got 5 on commerce, I have to drop my price 20% for this dude? I mean, it doesn't, doesn't make sense. The moments where it is Japan, where it's not Japan, but it's very clearly almost all Japan. The mix and matching of historical moments to the fantasy of the realm, We're in effectively an Edo period where you can't change your station. You're forever stuck there, and you just have to hope you're, born into another station. But at the same time, we still do things like it's the Sengoku period before Hideyoshi decided to make that kind of law and edict when he was mastering the land. So things are really
that stuff doesn't
wishy-washy.
bother me. It's just like they're picking and choosing what they want, I guess, for this setting.
Yeah, and like again, it doesn't mind, but it's like trying to explain that to new people or bring it along.
Or the writers need it.
Oh yeah, it's like bring it
Especially
along.
when people walk into it thinking I'm playing a samurai game, and so if they're knowledgeable with a lot of the samurai history, it can be a little.
I guess I don't know. I just realized quickly it's not all Japan.
Yeah, it's not all Japan, which I mean you have to tell everybody from the
You
start.
gotta be upfront with that part. Yeah, like they pick and chose from other places, so it's just its own setting that has a lot of Japanese influence.
Talking about the flavor with L5R, the books that came out, because that was Mao and mine's first experience with L5R, was the Way of Scrolls that they came out with. I think it was like was it 7 or 8 books. I can't remember.
We've
Seven
talked about
books.
this, yeah.
For the Clan War
Yeah.
novels, right? Or are you talking about the actual RPG books?
Yeah, not the RPG, but like their actual like chapter.
Yeah,
books.
one for each clan.
But right before each chapter, or right before each book began, like after the title page, after the table of contents, it had this little blurb that said Rokugan is based off of Japan, but also incorporates elements of Korea, China, Mongolia, etc., etc. And so it kind of primed us with that because we read the books and because that was like on page 1. But if you don't have that as an introductory, you don't have that mindset adjustment at the beginning.
I mean, there was for one of the games I was running, I actually was talking with one of our players who was starting off, and they wanted to know, like, why is EIG given its own completely different system? And it's like, well, it's a different skill. But then they were like, well, yeah, but so is spears and bows and whatnot. Why aren't they given their own completely different system for format? And then it's like, well, it's because it's more of this ritualized dueling and whatnot. And they're like, well, why would I ever want to do that if I'm not focusing on that? And I'm like, the way to
that's
explain
like a
it is,
culture that you gotta know. Yeah, so one of the probably the biggest parts of L5R is knowing all the cultural stuff.
Oh yeah,
like it's the biggest investment of any RPG I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. It kind of
What do you mean
reminds
it
me.
can't help the peasants?
I know, right? It kind of reminds me of when you were to play.
What do the heavens do?
What do the heavens do?
And this is something like you guys just touched on, the kind of understanding the culture and why it works and how it's different from Western culture even is a big hurdle even for some experienced players.
Yeah.
I mean, we ran into that in an RPG.
Yeah, we've seen just some people who just have a really hard time wrapping around the idea that you have to like set aside a modern Western culture idea, which pretty much encompasses the whole globe, and put it into.
You gotta play an evil character, basically.
Yeah, you play effectively an always evil character who's just not so much as evil, but they're just working with their laws, and it turns out that their laws are kind of brutal. So
yeah.
Also
maps.
God, fucking maps. Nothing.
Maps are amazing
Nothing.
in L5R. What are you talking about?
What maps?
Oh, that map book is so good. The Atlas is my favorite book.
The Atlas is literally a godsend. If that is what the heavens do, guys. That is what the heavens do. They give us a map.
I knew I could get Meta to ramble on about maps.
Thank you, based Robert Spooky.
Oh, Spooky, bless your heart. It was the best thing you could have ever given us.
Who needs measurements on a map?
I know, right?
Make the important things big.
It's just big, guys.
Yeah, go ahead, Meta.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's my love and hate relationship. I love the game though. I love the setting. I love the theme. I love the actions. I love the concepts. I love that in a samurai world they are still able to thematically apply so many different approaches to characters and still make them all feel like they're samurai. They just do different samurai things.
There you have it. Breaking news. Meta like samurai.
Oh my god.
Exactly.
When?
But
so back to Exalted for just a second.
All right.
Right. Close us out.
Maybe one day we're going to once we get through some of our backlog of monthly modules, I can run you guys through Exalted and show you just how completely busted mechanics can be. 'Cause you're all familiar. It's a White Wolf game. So you're all familiar with
the first thing the first thing I thought of when you mentioned this and how like you like the lore but the game or the mechanics were awful was Scion, their other one.
It's basically Scion on crack.
I have never played a White Wolf game, but I am the way you're prepping me for this. I am so ready for the jank. It's not real.
Take Imperial China, mash it up. The war is basically Imperial China, mash it up with the Romans. Have basically where the Romans are all mystically empowered with the elemental power of 5 dragons, and they hunt down these people called anathema who are basically demigods. And you play the anathema who are being hunted down.
Yeah.
You've lost a horrible war thousands of years ago, and there are people in heaven who, like L5R, give no shit about you or what you're doing. They kind of made you to be their pawns and then forgot about you. And then your chief god, the unconquered sun, who blesses his exalts, who are called the Solars, basically he goes, "Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about you guys. You guys need to like be heroes again and reconquer creation for me. So here's some more like exaltations." So you're basically start as a mortal person, and then through some heroic act, you become exalted. Now you're basically a demigod who there are powers that are like you walk through armies of 50,000 soldiers and none of them can lay a scratch on you.
Good God.
There are powers that do that.
I'm gonna posit this. I kind of want to move this up in our queue because that does sound like so
hilarious.
much entertainment. And as far as brokenness, like it sounds like it will be fun in the same way that watching like a very bad sci-fi flick is fun.
So in a White Wolf, you typically it has all the stats of White Wolf, basically all the skills. You have your 5 dots and 5 skill dots. So typically, like the most you can ever roll is like 10 without powers or whatever. In Exalted, a starting level character is not good at fighting. Typically, if he's not rolling at least like 20-something d10s on his attack roll.
Good God.
Trying to get successes.
What?
It's ridiculous.
What? Why do you need so many die?
You just do, man. Because the mechanics are completely broken.
Jesus.
It's fun. It's a fun game to play. Mechanics are really bad. Like, I think 2/3 of the book is your basically special powers, which are called charms. They have trees. There's a combo system where it's supposed to be kind of like a fighting game where you put your charms together and do like this combo that kind of like links up and stuff. It's
neutral
all
heavies
the
to back threes.
All the weapons have like 8 stats on them that all do different things, and this is how all the weapons are different. It's completely insane. I'll be sure to. I have a PDF of the 2nd edition. I'll be sure to share it with you guys. But it's awesome.
Online at one of the kind of synopsises of it, and they have this line: "A silly group could turn this easily into a kill/kill / Gurren Lagann."
Are you reading 1D4chan?
Yes, I'm on 1D4chan.
Yeah, that is awesome.
So
read through that.
This immediately sounds amazing. I'm gonna read through that the moment we're done here.
This has been episode 12 of Podcast of 5 Rings, your source of enlightenment in the realm of video games, tabletop, anime, film, and tech. Each episode of Podcast of 5 Rings releases Monday mornings on iTunes and SoundCloud. Now topic by topic, day by day on YouTube, with the full video releasing on Friday. Be sure to check us out on Twitter and Facebook. We may end up getting another spoiler for L5R by the time all this is said and done, which is where we will be posting them. Twitter, we're at Podcast 5R. Facebook, P5R Podcast. Meta has a stream. He's going to be streaming Final Fantasy 14 here soon.
Oh, yeah. I am
doing that samurai stuff.
Oh, I am so psyched for that expansion.
He's at twitch.tv/PSOflow. We're going to sign out here. This is Obsidian. We'll see you guys next week.
Kami bless everyone.
And bless us he did.
Go with the fortunes.
And make sure to check out monthly modules.
The heaven gave us maps. Praise the maps.